Hello, this is Kevin Kaplan from the Children's Resource Center in Bowling Green, Ohio. Thanks for joining me for another one of our parent chat topics, which this one is Introduction to Self-Care. Think of recharging your mental batteries. What is self-care? It is the act of acknowledging and meeting your specific personal needs. It is giving yourself some slack and some forgiveness when things get tough. It is recognizing your strengths and efforts. Putting the oxygen mask on yourself first. How many of us have flown before? I have a couple times. And anyways, when they are getting you ready before the flight, they talk about the importance of putting the mask on yourself first if you have children with you, because if you don't do that, you run the risk of running out of oxygen yourself and passing out, fainting, or some other event preventing you from getting the mask on your child. And that would be a tragedy. So keep that one in mind, because to me, that one really drives home the point. It is also understanding yourself and your emotions. The research tells us that understanding emotions is the basis behind self-regulation, managing ourselves and our feelings, and is one of the first steps to self-care. So what do you do about your emotions if you don't understand them, right? So recognizing them is kind of the first step in that process. It is also knowing when and where to go for help. What are the resources in your community? Who can support you? Friends, family, loved ones, others, a support group, maybe a therapist or a professional. It is also setting boundaries where possible. We all have limits. None of us are limitless. At some point, we're going to run out. We're going to burn out. We're burning the candle on both ends. Our candle may be completely on fire. And so we need to know where those limits should be at, what our limits are, and try to set some around us so that the expectations for us aren't beyond our abilities, because that will just lead to even more burnout. And burnout is that sense of exhaustion that I just can't do it. I can't do it anymore. I'm done. That's burnout. Why is self-care important? Self-care is so important. Self-care helps us to build resilience. We can think of resilience as a series of rubber bands. As shown in this picture, there's a series of rubber bands being pulled between two fingers. And the more self-care that we utilize, the more supports that we have access to, the more resources that we reach out to and utilize, the more rubber bands we have between that stress. So when life gets tough, those rubber bands get pulled more and more. And so the more rubber bands we have, the more likely we're able to bounce back and recover. We never come back to the same, because stress changes us. Events in life that are stressful change us forever. But those rubber bands, we can keep using those, the ones that are working for us. So think about that and how you can add more rubber bands to your resilience. There are 6 types of self-care. There's your physical health, which is your body. Ways to practice physical health, self-care for your body would be exercise, movement, some relaxation techniques. It could also be taking care of your hygiene. Sometimes you might be so busy with life, childcare, schooling, homeschooling, and those kind of things that are going on, that you might at times neglect your physical well-being. So be sure to incorporate those as much as possible. And when you have time, when you have a little bit of extra time, maybe do something special for yourself. A facial mask, clip your nails, things like that. And there's lots of ideas out there on the internet. The next area is emotions, so our feelings. Checking in with yourself and how you're feeling today, how you're feeling in this moment, and how is that going to affect your interaction with others. If you wake up feeling really tired or frustrated or moody in some way, and your children are pushing your buttons, you're going to have less tolerance for that. And so you're probably going to be more likely to lash out or say something in a less desirable way. And that's okay. We're not aiming for perfection, but recognizing our feelings can be the first step in responding more appropriately. So, giving yourself a little more slack in this area and just being willing to experience that emotion and feel okay with it. You don't have to judge yourself because maybe you had a bad day. Our mind or our mental health has a lot to do with our self-care and our resilience and how well we can bounce back. And it's important to think about what thoughts you're having throughout the day. What is your self-talk? Is it mostly negative? Are you upset about the current living situation? Are you upset about the school situation with the pandemic? How is that affecting your thoughts about yourself and your abilities? What are some ways that you can find gratefulness in life? What are some things that you can be thankful for? That can really turn around your perspective. There are positive affirmations out there, like memes, that can help to promote a positive mental state during the day. Accessing those things and keeping them nearby, because it can be easy and very easy in challenging times to slip into a state like a depressive state or a sad state, an angry state, or anything that's negative. And it's not that that's not okay to experience those emotions, but experience them, recognize them, and then move forward. Spiritual is another area of self-care. Spiritual is important because it is our greater meaning and purpose. For those of you who are religious, this could mean going to church more often. This could mean reaching out to those in your congregation. If you're not religious, this could be finding some way to connect with the powers that be in the world. Nature, the universe, mindfulness, and so on. The work area of self-care is a really challenging area for most of us right now because a lot of us are working from home. And so there can be a blended role between who we are as an employee and who we are as a family member. And so parents may be flipping back and forth between being a parent and being a employee. And so this may be where setting limits and having those boundaries can help. If you do have a co-parent, someone working with you on this parenting journey, they can, maybe you can coordinate with them on areas where you can focus on the children and then they can focus and you can flip-flop. If not, is there someone in your life you can reach out to who can come by it or be supportive in some other way to help your kiddos? Maybe it's a grandparent or a caretaker or a neighbor, someone that you've still had contact with. We certainly want to respect physical distancing guidelines while still maintaining social connection. And that's where relationships come in. Connection with others, the research tells us, is so important for our mental health. So we may feel more distant from others right now. And I think this is where social media has kind of come in to fill the void. Well, it was in some ways still is like a good evil. I think that it's become more of a good right now just because a lot of us don't have ways to connect with others. And so this is one way that we can reach out to the community. You can build your relationships through support groups and other avenues on social media. So that's another area to think about your self-care. Tips for success include just accepting mistakes and mess ups as part of the growth process. We can't grow if we don't make mistakes. Think about strategies that have worked well in the past. And this tip is about rekindling or bringing back things that you, maybe an old hobby you put away, or things that you once let go of that you really enjoy. And it's also about thinking about the things that have not worked for you and decreasing those, getting those routines or activities decreased or out of your life. Another tip is making realistic goals. That is one day at a time. No one is perfect. You know, we have to take our larger goals and break them down into smaller ones that are more realistic, more manageable. They fit our time schedule possibly. We can do them little bits here and there in between chores and taking care of the children. Another tip is remembering to reach out to your supports or to professionals. Again, that social connection piece. Me time is really important. It doesn't matter how big or small it is. Finding just little moments here and there where you can get some me time in, maybe picking a song to listen to on a trip, or maybe it is just like one parent I read in a story soaked their hands in the bathtub while their child was taking a bath, and they massaged their hands and relaxed their hands in the warm water. That's a great example of a small amount of me time right in the middle of doing a daily activity with your child. Keeping relationships, again, active as much as possible. Some basic ideas for self-care is smiling, laughter, humor. Those are great ways to do self-care, and they're so small sometimes. That's why I love them. Music, imagery, arts, journal, scrapbooking, create family routines and a schedule. That's a big one for reducing overall stress because it might take some investment beforehand to create those routines, but start small and manageable. Work with a routine around dinner time or bedtime, incorporate it somewhere in there, and then roll with it. Add to it. Use naps and other quiet times to your advantage as opportunities for you to relax. So if your child doesn't nap anymore, maybe plan in some quiet times where maybe they're reading a book or they're doing another quiet activity so that you can have a quiet moment during that time. Experience feelings that you have and that your children have with compassion, without judgment. Because we're all experiencing stress right now, especially children. They don't really understand what's going on, and we don't really either. So we model for them how to stay calm and keep focused and positive and just care for ourselves in general. It's okay to be upset that we can't go here or there or do this or that. What can we do instead? Include the children in your self-care activities sometimes. This may be a workaround for those of you who just feel like you absolutely positively have 0 seconds to do self-care. Include the children in it, like in the bathtub example, or in a breathing example where you practice breathing with them. You could also join in a virtual group or podcast. There are tons out there: Google, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the list goes on. And then there are parent groups on Facebook. So I invite you to explore that when you get a moment. One of the best activities that you can do that takes very little time is practice breathing. For belly breathing, which is the best kind of breathing, sit or lie flat in a comfortable position. Put one hand on your belly just below your rib cage and one hand on your chest. Take a deep breath in through your nose and let your belly push your bottom hand out. Breathe out through pursed lips as if you were whistling. Do this 3 to 10 times. That activity alone will really help to stimulate your mind and to relax it and relax your body. It increases oxygen in your blood flow to your brain and your body. You can also do this with children by having them practice with a stuffed animal on their belly. and they can practice raising and lowering the stuffed animal on their belly. There's some YouTube videos if you're on YouTube. So I brought these memes to you because I thought they really drove home the point of self-care, not because I want to torture you about maybe how you're not doing it or doing it. An empty tank will take you exactly nowhere. Take time to refuel. It's not selfish to do what's best for you. Self-care is so important. When you take time to replenish your spirit, it allows you to serve others from the overflow. You cannot serve from an empty vessel. Everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you. Take time to care for yourself does not mean me first, it means me too. And the last one is a picture of a battery that's almost dead, and it says, you wouldn't let this happen to your phone. Don't let it happen to you either. I really like those. So I had some resources to share with you too. The one is from Sesame Street. It's self-care tips for parents. One is from 0 to 3 for young children, parents caring for young children during the outbreak. One is a self-care inventory. This is a little more in-depth and can help you to pinpoint areas of self-care that you might focus on. This may be for those of you who are using lots of self-care and aren't sure where to go next. And then another one from Signs of Suicide, which is self-care during the COVID-19 crisis. And there's good stuff in all of these. So I'm going to share them with you in the chat box if you're in the live session, or email them to you if you're in the live session. Otherwise, thanks for attending, and I hope to see you in the next one.